Well, hello there from Central California. This is your cookie goddess from Smalley's Cookie Goddess. And today we are going to show you how to make homemade sourdough bread and offer some tips along the way. Now in the bowl we have 2½ cups of all-purpose flour and 1 package of active dry yeast, which equals to about 2 teaspoons and 1/4. A good idea is to always to get the little packages because they hold a lot better than they would if you get a large container of yeast, because the yeast will eventually lose its component to be able to make good breads and so forth. So always get the little packets whenever possible, and they're available in your baking section of any grocery store. Now over here we have our wet mixture, and this is 1½ cups of water, 3 tablespoons of sugar, 3 tablespoons of butter, and a ½ teaspoon of salt. So what we're going to do is carefully pour this in here into our mixing bowl, because we want to combine the ingredients so they do work together, but we don't want to overpower it all together either. So we're going to mix this a little bit on first speed. Let me set this pan down for a second. Alright, let's unlock this, lift this up, and as you can see it's already starting to combine together really well. And we're just going to add some of the hot mixture a little at a time, just to be careful and not to have any big clumps in your flour or whatnot. It's always best to mix a little at a time rather than a whole bunch, because by doing that it allows it to build up and combine a very good combination of your recipe. Now we're going to go ahead and lock this. And I can't stress enough how important it is to lock your mixer in the position, because I worked in bakeries and donut shops for some years, and more injuries were caused by a mixer being unlocked or not covered, and there were some pretty serious injuries along the way. So really be careful and double check that you always have this locked. Alright, we're going to go ahead and put this on first speed and let this combine a little bit more. Okay, and we're going to add the rest of our wet mixture. Pardon me there. And we're going to mix this just a little bit more, just to be able to get everything all working together. The sugar, the salt, the yeast, water, flour, and so forth. Because we really want to get a good mix of this so we have a smooth and fluffy bread. And the key to making any kind of recipe is how you mix your ingredients and not what you make. So when a recipe calls to say have your dry mixture or wet mixture separate, there's a good reason for it, and that's so your recipe will come out on top and not have any problem. Okay, that's mixing up really well. It's starting to get smooth, which is good. We're going to put this on second speed for just about 30 seconds. Okay, that's looking really good. Alright, let's unlock this, open this up, and now we are going to add our sourdough starter. And your starter is very important. I have another video that emphasizes this. Your starter is the heart of your sourdough bread. And this is what really makes any kind of bread moist and fluffy, and the key to your bread coming out the way bread is meant to. And also, when you have a starter, be sure to stir it really, really well as you prepare your sourdough bread, because the flour and so forth will be on the bottom and the liquid will always be on top. So you always want to scrape this out really well, because you obviously want a very great recipe. Okay, there we go. Let's put our pan over here for a second. Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, I'm kind of rearranging a little bit as I go. Alright, and let's just give that a little bit just to blend. We're going to do this at medium speed for 30 seconds, then we're going to scrape the bowl, and then we're going to go to high speed at 3 minutes. And this allows for a great mixture to allow the bread ingredients to really get that that chemistry going. And baking and chemistry are actually the same thing. People don't actually realize how much chemistry goes into it, because you have so many elements that work together to combine one factor. And when they say to blend, put your baking soda in last, there's a reason for it, because it's called sodium bicarbonate, which is a chemistry term, and that allows your bread and your well, anything you're baking to rise and get fluffy, whereas baking powder is composed of cornstarch and baking soda, and that's called a leavening, which means it allows it to stay flat and not get fluffy at all. Alright, we're going to turn this onto high speed for 3 minutes, and we'll be right back. Okay, while the mix is going there, I want to emphasize another point here. I have 2 bowls that have some shortening in it, and always use vegetable shortening or any kind of Crisco when you're working a bread recipe. And you don't ever want to use butter or oil. Butter will burn, and oil will just soak into any kind of product you're making, so you really want to watch that. Another thing too is, we live in Central California, so we get a lot of dust and so forth. Do not use your bowls or any of your pans until you're ready to, and either keep them covered or flipped upside down. And this reduces the chance of any contaminations, dirt, so forth, or pollen to get into your recipe. It will really make a difference. Okay, we're going to go check on our mixer over here, and we'll take a short break. Now that our starter has mixed with our wet and dry ingredients, we need to add 2.5 to 3 cups of the remaining flour and baking soda. So we're going to sprinkle this in lightly and just kind of let it go slowly, because you don't want to overwhelm all the ingredients, or else you're going to end up with a lot of clots and clumps in your sourdough. So we're going to do this on 2nd speed. And just kind of allow it to get in there and work its way around. And just tap the side of the bowl to get your flour out. Alright, that's 1 cup. This is 2 cups. Okay, and here is 2.5 cups. Just kind of blend that in a little at a time so we don't overpower the wet mixture. And tap it as we go. Okay, we're going to stop this for just a second because I just want to see how the bread dough's doing. It's looking good. Always scrape down the hook and so forth, because a lot of clumps and so forth will get hooked on the bread hook there. Yeah, I just want to scrape this down. Scrape the flour down. And another rule of thumb too is, when you're making any kind of recipe, if at all possible, put your wet ingredients on the bottom and your dry ingredients on the top. For bread, it's a little bit different, But the reason you want to put your wet ingredients on the bottom is so when you start your mixture, the wet ingredients are going to be pulled up as the dry ingredients are pulled down, which makes it like a puzzle and all come together in your recipe. So another thing too is you want to reach deep down within the bread dough on the bottom and make sure you get all that dry flour that the hook it can't reach. Okay, it's looking good. All right. Okay, there. And we are going to add some baking soda, which is also known as sodium bicarbonate by a lot of another generation. And I never like to call people old. I always like to say classic, you know, like classic cars and so forth, because I figured classic's a really good compliment for anybody who's had the nerve to survive more than 50 or 60 years on this planet. So if I refer to you as classic, it's a compliment. All right, here we go. We're gonna get some baking soda here, and this is gonna be a half teaspoon of baking soda. So we are going to get this in here. Oops, sorry ladies and gentlemen, I grabbed 1 teaspoon. Okay, here we go. A half teaspoon of baking soda. Let's lock our mixer, and we're going to add this in just a little at a time. Oy. Sorry everybody, I'm left-handed, and we live in a right-handed world, right? Okay. Okay, now we're going to have this on first speed. And we're just going to sprinkle our baking soda in, just a little bit to kind of let it gather and get all mixed in there. And we're going to leave it on first speed for about 30 seconds just to kind of combine it. And then we're going to add more flour if need be to make a stiff dough. You don't want your dough to be sticky. All right. Another rule of thumb too is when you're making any kind of recipe, make sure to put the ingredient away after you use it, because a lot of people may accidentally put double the salt, double baking soda, double pepper. It happens all the time. So if you put it away, it's going to be one step closer to making a perfect recipe for anything that you're doing. Okay, so we need to add a little bit more flour because it's looking kind of sticky, which is good. Okay, it's going to take up to 3 to 3.5 cups of flour, depending on the stickiness of the dough. And just kind of sprinkle it in there nice and gently to allow it to work in. All right, it's coming along. Okay. So let's stop this and scrape down the dough. And another thing I want to emphasize too is whenever you have your flour or sugar out, that kind of thing, never leave measuring cups or anything of that sort in the container, because there's something in the grocery business called cross-contamination. And what that is that's when unwanted elements get into a fresh product, and it can actually ruin the product and change the whole chemical reaction of your flour, sugar, anything of that sort. So be sure to always keep your cups out of any kind of ingredient you have, and it will make a difference. I can assure you of that. Okay, we're going to mix this, and we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back.